Is your student starting the scholarship process, or maybe they were finally asked to write the personal statement? A lot of students hate this question because a lot of times it's just this general, just tell us about yourself kind of question. So there's not much guidance on what they're looking for. The good news is that actually they are pretty specific on what they're looking for when it comes to a well-crafted personal statement. Now, students have a ton of flexibility with this, but there's certain points we really want to hit on. So today I want to share those. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to write a winning personal statement that students can use for scholarships. In fact, this is also something that they can use for admissions. Now, don't forget to hit subscribe because every single week we're releasing a new video to help families work on paying for college without that dreaded student loan debt. Hey there, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System and Debt-Free Degree Lab, and we've helped families secure over $10 million now in scholarships for college, avoiding decades of student loan debt payments. Now, of course, as you could imagine, this personal statement is a very critical piece of that, and so that's what I want to focus on today. Now, when it comes to the personal statement, a lot of students tend to struggle because they don't know what to talk about, or they just kind of ramble and then hope that's sufficient. But really, a personal statement, it's unavoidable when it comes to applying for scholarships and most likely with admissions. In fact, also, if they decide to interview for an internship or their job, probably they're going to have to start off with, hey, tell me about yourself. And they can think, oh, that's basically a personal statement. So what is a personal statement? A personal statement is an essay. Now, word length will depend on the specific scholarship or admissions essay. And it's a chance for a student to really share information about themselves. And it's a great opportunity to share information that may not have been covered in other parts of the application. So this is their opportunity to really paint a picture so that the committee can understand who they are as a student and will they or will they not succeed? Hint, hint, that's very important. So let's talk about determining what to write. So some applications will give general guidelines. They'll give some prompts or some suggested topics to hit on in their response. For example, in the Common App, they have very specific prompts that they can choose from. But other times they might just say, leave a personal statement here, or do you have a personal statement, or tell us about yourself. And then it is totally, or students think it's totally up to them. However, again, I'm going to share there are actually very specific things that they should focus on. Now, comment below, has your student had to write a personal statement? What prompt did they have, or how was it worded? And did they struggle with it? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll try to reply back with some tips. Now, also, before I get into how to really focus on this personal statement, I do want to just let you know that we have a free training on how to find scholarships that sometimes require these. So we want to find legitimate scholarships with less competition. And to do that, I have a free 45-minute training called the 6 Steps to Securing Scholarships Quickly for College and Avoiding Student Loan Debt. So you can go to thescholarshipsystem.com/free training, or you can find the link in the description or somewhere here on the screen, but make sure you check that out after this video. Okay, let's dive in. So how can we write a personal statement, whether it's for scholarships or admissions? The first thing that we always suggest is to approach it like a story. Try to use storytelling when we are writing this. So you want your student to avoid sounding like they're just ticking off the achievements list, just reading off their resume. Instead, we want to craft a dynamic story that really shares accomplishments and frames them in a meaningful way. It opens up the committee to who your student is and what they've experienced. So stories are very important. Now, to go off of this, we want to be creative, right? So stories are our easiest way to tell students to be creative. How can we be creative? Well, start with a story. And I will say that through the scholarship system, we have given out tens of thousands now in our own scholarships. And every time that we are choosing our winners, we've gone through thousands of applications. Every time we're choosing our winners, we actually hide the personal identification, but we always end up referring to them by the stories they use. I still remember them. There was the costume design girl. There was the hiking in line boy. We always remember the story. And so that is another reason why these stories are so important. It's an easy way to stand out. Scholarship committees have to read dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of applications. And so we want to make sure that we are memorable. And a story is a way that just humans remember things. The next important point when it comes to writing the statement is not to just repeat things that are on other sections of the application. Use this opportunity to fill in the gaps, to answer things that are not asked, and to really round out the full application and give them insight in something that they haven't quite touched on. Another thing we want to try to weave into our personal statement is why our student, and your student should be doing this, by the way, but your student should weave in why they deserve either the scholarship or admissions. So why should they be selected? What will they do with this, right? So ultimately, when we want to select someone as our winner, it's because we know that they're going to take this opportunity and make the most out of it. So how is your student going to do that? That is a huge, huge piece of this. Will they succeed? In order to get a glimpse of that, we need to see why they think they deserve this and what their plans are to do with this, whether it's the money or the admissions opportunity. Okay, just a few more tips before I get into what not to do. Focus on strengths. Or we can share a weakness, but we then would want to turn it into how we're turning it into a strength or how we're overcoming it. So we want to, of course, paint ourselves in the best picture that we can paint. So this is something that your student can do in order to make themselves shine. And then going off of that, we can also focus on values. So inside the scholarship system and Debt-Free Degree Lab are two programs. We have a ton on writing essays, as you could imagine. Very specific examples, actual winning essays that our families have shared with us over the years. And one of the things that we've found, and one of the things that we really focus on teaching, is focusing on values. What kind of values are important to your student? How have they impacted your student? Where did they get these values? Maybe it was an experience that really changed their trajectory of their life. How do these correlate with their future and their future success? How do they plan to use these in college and beyond? So picking one or two values and focusing on those are a great way to really answer a personal statement question and give it structure, while also giving them insight into who your student is. So we love values. And again, we really focus on this in our 3-step writing method that we teach in the scholarship system. But values can be such an opportunity when it comes to especially open-ended prompts like this. Okay, so those are some of the things that we want to do. Some ideas of what we want to include, how to make this a strong personal statement. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how to approach this, but before I get to that, I want to just give you 2 things of what you don't want your student to do. First is to focus on someone else. A lot of times students will tell the story of their grandparent that inspired them, or their aunt, uncle, mom, dad, whoever it is. It's okay to tell a story of someone else. However, it should always tie back to the student and what they got out of it, what they're doing with this, why they are the center of the show. So we don't want the essay to be about grandma. We want it to be about us, right? So don't oversell why our uncle is amazing to go to college. We want to sell ourselves. So this is something that students should focus on and really make sure that they're not doing too much about someone else, writing too much about someone else. Secondly, what we don't want to do is just cover basic life info. I have 5 siblings, I live in this town, I really like sports, just general blanket statements, unless it's applicable to the story, unless it's relevant to the plot of the story or relevant to the values that you're going to explain. They don't need to know just the basic info unless, again, it's really critical to that story that we're telling. Okay, so there are some do's and don'ts. Now, before we wrap up, I want to share how to approach this process. Now, again, in the scholarship system, we have a 3-step writing method that's really helpful for this. And so I'm just stealing some of the points from that. And first and foremost, try to jot down some notes. If your student is having just a mind block when it comes to writing their personal statement, have them step away from the computer, get a piece of paper and a pencil. Believe it or not, that actually does get creative juices flowing that just don't happen when it comes to using, say, Google Doc or Word Doc. get them out away from the computer and thinking outside the box. So jot down some notes on that paper. It can be maybe write down the prompt in the middle and brainstorm from there. List everything and anything that comes to mind. So just have them brain dump whatever they can think of. And then from there, they can go back and select some of the best parts that they brainstormed, or some of the most in-depth things they think they can speak to, or maybe it's even just one thing and it can be a really strong story tied to some values. So try to get everything possible on that paper and then narrow it down to where do we want to focus. The other thing I want to talk about is just that try to tell them this is a rough draft. This is just the beginning. It doesn't have to be perfect. So try to get that rough draft down. It can be as rough as they could think of, right? As long as it's somewhat cohesive and makes sense, it's good, because then we'll reiterate, we will proofread, we will refine, we will fine tune, we'll ask other people's opinions. We can just get that first draft down and then make it better. Now, the third thing when it comes to how to really approach this process is to always focus on the requirements. So for example, maybe it's 1,000 words, maybe it's 500 words. That is a huge difference when it comes to writing an essay. So make sure that your student is following the rules and keeping those in mind when they're writing from the beginning, because again, it can really make a difference. Now, one last thing, and this is a huge tip, is that these can be reused. Once your student has their story, has their strengths, has their values, they can reuse this personal statement over and over. In fact, I did all the time when I got to college and kept on applying for scholarships. I got 6 figures in scholarships using primarily the same essay over and over. I just updated it each year and then resubmitted it. Maybe I had to edit how many words it was here and there, or maybe I took a piece out of it, but still I was able to reuse it many times, and many of our students have said the same thing. They write maybe 4 or 5 core essays and reuse them over and over. Now, I actually have a separate video on how to reuse essays, so we'll link to that in the description below. Make sure that you check that out because it can be very helpful. And also, like I said, you can also segment this out. Your student can use pieces of it for different prompts. So again, it can be reused in so many ways. Okay, so that said, you have tons of suggestions that can help you and your student get through that personal statement. Again, personal statements are so important. They can be used for scholarships, they can be used for admissions, and if they really get a good knack on this, if they really narrow down their story and values, they can also use those in interviews. So this is a life skill we're talking about here. So we also have a blog post which actually has examples and templates on essays. So we will link to that as well in the description. All of these amazing resources you'll find in the description. So make sure that you stop after this video and read the description, click all the links, get all the free resources down below. And don't forget that free training is in there for how to find the scholarships that are legitimate that actually will ask for this precious personal statement. All right, everyone. I hope that was helpful. Again, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System, and I will see you in the next video.